What's up, guys? Grectum here. We're 1 week out now from Borderlands 4, so I've just been spending some time in Maxroll cooking up some builds for leveling Harlowe, who I plan to start with. These are just some example trees for getting to right around level 30, so a little bit after we'll be able to grab one of our capstones of our choice. So really these builds are just focused on getting us through the story and up to the capstone of our choice for specializing in whatever tree we decide for. So we're going to start with this idea I had for a crit bubble build. Basically, we're going to be focused on critical damage and this capstone falling bodies, so that we can um, get more enemies into stasis and then also deal extra damage with the slamming effect that'll happen automatically. And we'll be able to proc a lot of entanglements with critical hits as well. So to start off with, we're going to take 5 points in Make Extraordinary. This is just going to give us early crit chance that we might not be able to get outside of getting like a Jacobs or some sort of high crit weapon early on, obviously. So with those 5 points, we'll be able to grab Strange Attractor. Strange Attractor is the augment of choice for this crit-focused build. So with this, we'll be able to not only cause extra ricochets to go towards all enemies in stasis, but we'll also be able to entangle enemies very consistently with critical hits, and entanglement will hopefully just be procced all over the place once we get our critical hits high enough. Um, After this, we have a few different options for our points. For this, I'm going to take 1 point into negative entropy, just to be able to get into precise engineering, and then the next 4 points we'll put into periodic table flip. Periodic table flip will just give us some extra status effect chance and elemental damage, because Lord knows what weapons we'll have early on, so any extra damage that we can get is going to be very helpful. Next, we'll take 3 points into precise engineering just to really double down on our crit focus here. And then we'll take 1 point into ripple effect as well. Actually, I would probably take this before I took precise engineering, because what this kill skill does will help us proc more entangles. So every time we kill an entangled enemy, another one gets entangled. This is just a consistent, guaranteed way to have at least somebody entangled once we get the first entanglement started. Now, after this, we're going to have to spend a few more points to get into the next section of the tree. So we'll put 1 point here into 2 coolant for schoolant. That's a terrible name. But this is just where we're going to put this for right now. And you'll see why we have this, even if we're not going to be using a cryo weapon, even though that would be extremely helpful for this build. Next, we're going to take Force of Will. Force of Will is going to, again, focus on when we critically hit enemies, we're going to be able to daze them, and dazed enemies will just be kind of CC'd and slowed down, and this is going to be super helpful for us, though. Enemies are going to basically deal less damage anytime we crit on them, so it's just a CC fiesta for us there. And then we have 2 really powerful nodes here, in my opinion. I think that's actually a good idea to take points into both of these, just because Slingshot is going to be how we can not only keep enemies entangled from dazing them, but we also gain movement speed now anytime we daze enemies. So this is just going to be a really good way to keep us going fast, especially throughout the end of the story. And then this kill skill is another really good one that will help us restore health. Sorry, not health. Action skill cooldown. Just to help us keep proccing more stasis bubbles. And then finally, we'll be able to grab falling bodies. This capstone looks like a lot of fun here. So this capstone basically makes it so that we can place more enemies into stasis at a time. I believe this will make it so that we can stack up a bunch of enemies in stasis over and over again, and just shorten the duration of our action skill. So what is that? That looks like it'll help us get off at least 3 or 4 extra enemies into stasis if we were to just spam this over and over again. And then at the end of that, it'll just slam them all. So I think that'll be a lot of fun to play around with. And even if we don't do that, like if we run a boss or something, we might not do that. We still have all of our ricochets and all of our crit damage focus for single target. And to help that out even more, we're going to grab freeze frame. So this will help us get some extra guaranteed source of cryo damage. So that's why we took this node back here, is that anytime now that we have somebody in stasis, we're going to be dealing bonus cryo damage. And if we have bonus cryo damage, we have some extra action skill cooldown here guaranteed as long as we take this node. And then this is probably the most powerful node in our synergy, to be honest, and ties back into being able to slam everybody with falling bodies, because now with this node, once we take it, of course, we see that whenever Harlowe critically hits an enemy, she briefly puts the enemy into stasis, and this is a much shorter stasis, and it seems to last only until the enemy is shot again. That's an interesting thought. So maybe the idea is to crit a bunch of enemies into stasis, and then spam our action skill to slam them all. It's kind of the idea here. Just kind of one of the concepts that I had for this node. For this tree. And really the last 3 points we can kind of put wherever. It's probably going to be between these two, so we can either get bonus cryo damage again on a temporary basis here, or we get a little bit of life steal here from cryo damage. Probably better if we were to focus full cryo into this node, but really the last few points here, haven't really figured out where I want to put them yet. Okay, that's really all I had for this concept for a build. I'm going to probably play around with the other trees here, other capstones here as well later on, but for now that's kind of my idea for a Harlowe blue tree to get us started. Alright guys, now we're going to cover like a self-buffing build that's focused on group study that'll basically make it so that our action skill, instead of being a big entanglement AoE, just is a huge buff to gun damage, fire rate, and reload speed for us. So we're really just going to be rushing to this capstone here with this tree. So to start out with, we can either take 5 points into something like a momentum for crit damage, or we can take Main's Hum just to get some extra energy shield and overshield going. And then really early on, you could either go for coronal mass ejection to make it so that we can kind of ignore enemy elemental resistances and use whatever gun. This might be really nice if you want to focus really on whatever guns you're using, but I would definitely take 5 points into mass function regardless of you picking that or Blue Giant. But Blue Giant could be really good as well if you want to just focus on dealing more damage with the Flux Generator early on. And if you like that, obviously you might not end up going down this self-buffing path, which is obviously quite fine. But for now, we're just going to focus down on getting to this node. So let's say, for example, we take coronal mass ejection because we want to ignore enemy elemental resistance for early on. And then I guess we could start putting some more points in. So this is going to be really strong for us. Confirmative reality. Confirmative reality is basically going to get rid of, help us give a lot of extra cooldown going on entangled enemies. And as long as we have enemies standing within the flux generator, we're going to be getting a lot of cooldown back pretty quickly. And just being able to spam that over and over again. And then these next 2 points we're going to be able to put into Creative Overflow to get extra gun damage going from our Overshield. And hopefully we're going to have Overshield when we're standing in our Flux Generator. Yeah, so that's going to be a really good buff to our damage. That should be pretty consistent. And then once we get down here, we're able to make some changes here, and we'll switch into Perpetual Engine. Perpetual Engine is going to give us a lot of damage reduction and action skill duration. So we're going to be able to get 7% DR per entangled enemy. We have, 4 or 5 enemies. We're well over, at 5 enemies within there, we're at 35% increased damage reduction. That's huge. That's so much tankiness. And increased duration so that we don't have to proc our flux generator again is just super strong. And now we've got guaranteed, well, not guaranteed, but we have increased ricochet chance against entangled enemies. And if we're going to be focusing on crit, kind of like we were with the blue tree, this is going to be really strong for getting even more ricochets going. You could also take this for critical damage if you don't feel like you're having fun with this, but refraction just seems like such a fun node. I don't know why you wouldn't take that. Next, because we're self-buffing, we're obviously going to take Accretion, because Accretion gives us a bunch of lifesteal. We're going to be able to get a ton of lifesteal off of this for all of our entangled enemies within our flux generator. And then moving on to our last few points, this is kind of where it gets a little free-for-all and we can kind of freestyle it. This node feels very much like Zane's node for dropping a grenade. So this is that sort of thing where we'd be able to just get free grenade tosses. So that sounds kind of fun. And then Pencils Down is going to give us some buffs while Flux Generator is on cooldown, so that seems pretty good. Reload speed is kind of hard to come by in some of these trees, even though we had some up here. But more reload speed really does not hurt us at all. And then we're going to take Group Study. So Group Study, like I said, is going to give us increased gun damage, fire rate, and reload speed that flies around and just grants us these buffs all around. And then we can re-trigger it to drain the skill faster, but make it a fair bit stronger. And then while that's cooling down after we juice it up, we have Pencils Down to kind of, act like our come down therapy, I suppose. And then we just have one last point. I don't know, we can kind of really put this wherever. Maybe increased damage to entangled enemies? Sure, why not? Yep, there's your 30-point self-support build. Now, this is the tree that I'm so most excited about, the red tree. The nuke tree is kind of what I've just been calling it. So Creative Burst is going to be our huge cryo radiation ball. I think this is going to be really good for early on damage, especially, compared to the other two skills in terms of skill damage. This is going to be like our real big burst button. But later on, once we look at this tree and the other tree, you're also going to see that there's going to be some CC potential with this one. So I guess we'll just kind of get straight into it. Early on, we're just going to be straight up focused on getting as much damage going for this nuke as possible. So we're going to take 5 points into Field Ready Prototype, get some more action skill damage going. Early on, we can take either of these, really, kind of up to you, what you want to test and play around with. But Void Star is going to make it so that the nuke passes by enemies and they lose health and are frozen, so this is gonna be really good for CC. If we focus this on like a badass or something and there's just some extra guys straggling around, this will hurt them, drain their health, and also freeze them, so that'll be very helpful in multi-enemy fights, as we're gonna see throughout this game. I mean, that's kind of how Borderlands works. Anyways, definitely going to take some Bleeding Edge here. Bleeding Edge is going to give us reload speed. If you've noticed, the blue tree did not have much to do for us in reload speed, so we're going to be taking advantage of that anywhere we can on our other trees. And then there's some extra utility here in Get Up and Go. Get Up and Go is going to make it so that we get increased movement speed for 8 seconds after we activate our action skill. So, we'll be able to drop our nuke and just keep running real quickly if we're trying to speed run through an area. After that, we're going to be able to take Carry the One and probably move into Field Research. Field Research is insanely busted. And so Field Research makes it so that every time our action skill kills an enemy, it refunds 20% of the cooldown. So if we can find a way to kill 5 enemies, that completely resets the cooldown instantaneously. That is insanely busted. There's no way we're not going to take that. So we're going to smash the Field Research button, folks, and click the notification bell. All right. Then we're going to move into Carry the One. Carry the One is going to entangle additional enemies. It's just going to cause more enemies to be entangled. You know, that's helpful. You could very well take 4 points into practical applications, but we want at least 1 point into Carry the One because that is connected to this cold welding node down here. And we'll see why we want that here in a second. So after we take our 5 points here, we take Break the Ice. Break the Ice is going to make it so that our Chrome Accelerator only does cryo damage, no more radiation. Bye, bye, bye. Sorry, my cat just jumped on my desk. I'm going to edit that out. All right, so then we got Core Sample. Core Sample is going to give us Lifesteal. Lifesteal is just a no-brainer. We need that in this game. We're taking a lot of damage. Get Lifesteal. And after that, we can finally grab Cue Ball. Cue Ball is going to make it so that our nuke bounces around, creating additional rad explosions, striking enemies, and just kind of being a fucking bouncy ball all over the screen. It's going to be pretty silly. And paired with Field Research, it's going to probably make it easier and more consistent to kill enemies with. And then on top of all of that, we get Cold Welding. So Cold Welding makes it so that when we freeze enemies, they take additional cryo damage, and so do all the entangled enemies. So once this ball bounces around, the ball's probably going to be entangling a bunch of people. We're going to have a bunch of enemies entangled all the time. And now, every time an enemy gets frozen, everybody takes extra cryo damage. Do you see the synergy that I've got going on here? And it gets even better with these last 2 points. This is only up to level 30, folks. You've got 19 other points to work with here in another tree, or even in this tree. Do it. We'll figure that out later, though. Mechanical Brilliance. Whenever Harlowe damages an enemy with a skill, she gains increased skill damage. Stack skill damage on top of everything else. It's like icing on top of a cake, folks. So this is the build that I'm most excited about. This is probably going to be the one that I focus on after I play around with the stasis bubble. Really, I'll probably focus on this early on, and then maybe do some stasis bubble memes and then respec. But we'll see. But maybe you don't want all of that cryo mumbo jumbo. Maybe you want more of a rad focus nuke. Don't worry. I've got you covered. Don't you worry at all. Because we've got the rad explosion nuke build. So we're going to have a very similar start here. I would actually not take Elementary. So after Bleeding Edge, we're going to take 5 points into Get Up and Go, like we did last time. And again, doesn't really matter what we take between these two, but I'll still probably... Actually, no, we'll probably take Neutron Capture to keep with the idea of extra rad damage here. Get Up and Go. After Get Up and Go, we're definitely going to switch over into Special Purpose Magnets. Special Purpose Magnets makes it so that our nuke pulls enemies in, kind of CCs them all together. This is going to be really nice for, getting all our enemies grouped up, and we can just start absolutely demolishing them. And to lean into that a bit more, we're going to take more boosted radiation damage from Poison Sun. And then this is a really interesting mix here between these two. So we can either get bonus radiation damage to entangled enemies, or we can start focusing more into these radiation darts. So whenever Harlowe damages an irradiated enemy or an entangled enemy, a radiation dart is shot at them. So this is going to be going off like every 2 seconds, almost all the time. This will be really interesting. I want to play around with this just because I think it'll be really goofy to just have all these extra darts flying around. And the reason that we want all these extra sources of radiation damage is because we have 2 absolutely insane nodes up here. So we have Dirty Bomb. So Dirty Bomb makes it so that whenever we irradiate an enemy, we cause radiation explosions to happen on that enemy, which procs more radiation damage, right? And then when we have an irradiated enemy that dies, or we kill an enemy with radiation damage, we're also leaving a radiation hazard. So we're not only creating explosions, but we're also leaving behind pools of radiation. And then on top of all of that, we've got even more radiation darts, baby, from Demon Core. Unstable energy pockets, traveling around, big nuke, CCing enemies together here. But then also, we're shooting darts at the enemies again. And they're guaranteed irradiated. This is just so free. We have even more big darts. This is at least 50 to 100% more damage than these. It looks like about 50 once we have 3 points in here, assuming that 81 damage stacks. So really, big nukes, big darts. It's going to be awesome. From there, we can either take those same 3 points into skill damage. We can take these points into skill damage that it's just guaranteed. So this is like what, 21% skill damage, and then this is stacking skill damage that probably scales a bit higher. I'm more partial to things that stack and incentivizing keeping those stacks up, so I'm gonna have to probably take that one. Yeah, there we go. Big radiation damage build. These 2 nodes here, these 2 trees here for the nuke build, very exciting for me. Can't wait to try these out. So yeah, I think that's probably gonna be it for us. Went over quite a few builds here. So yeah, you guys just let me know what you guys want to see next. I'm probably gonna do another video talking about the second half of some of these trees, or just really elaborating on the rest of the nuke builds for Harlowe. If you want to see anything else for like Amon or any of the other ball hunters, let me know. Peace.